This was an 82-page document, which is 2 different body cam transcripts filed in district court in Minnesota 10 days ago or so. Actually, same day the Harper's letter came out, looks like. And yeah, it's audio transcripts from 2 of the police officers involved. And what I was able to do, I read through them and went back and looked at a little bit of the video and was able to map on a little bit in one of the cases to sort of where in the transcript we're seeing, because it's hard to know without any sound or anything. It's hard to know what is actually going on when in this transcript. But what do you see here?
Well, I see a number of things. So first of all, this covers a lot of territory that I spoke to Joe Rogan about, that we disagreed over the interpretation of it. And so now we know a lot of the answers that we were speculating on back then. And I will just say I've read through the transcript, and certain things. One, there's no indication that Chauvin and Floyd recognized that they knew each other, if they knew each other at all, right? So there's no dialogue between them that seems like people who know each other. I don't see anything in there about race. There's no overt racism in the transcript. Doesn't mean it's not there on people's minds, but it doesn't show up there. Excited delirium does show up, but it shows up late in the interaction. So probably doesn't play a role as important as I suspected it might.
I wasn't able to figure out early throughout the interaction, Floyd is saying things like about claustrophobia, I'm choking, I can't breathe, as far as I can tell, before any officers are on him. And he says things like, my face is gone. And then what you can't hear in the video that we all saw, but you see in these transcripts, this discussion between officers, is he intoxicated? What kind of pipe was that? Do we think it's PCP?
Yeah.
What you see again is no mention of race between the officers, at least from these 2 transcripts.
Yeah.
But what does appear to be a description of a discussion of them trying to figure out what is going on with this guy and how it is that they can do what they need to do. It seems like, while really trying not to hurt him.
Well, look, I'm no expert in police stuff, but I do want to say in the transcript, it is clear, A, that George Floyd complains about not being able to breathe before he's on the ground. B, that the officers don't prefer to put him on the ground. They want to put him in the car.
He won't go,
and actually he asks to be put on the ground, right?
So you've said that I didn't see that in these transcripts, and I read through it fast. But so Floyd talks about this just happened to me. I don't want to get shot, and there's a whole lot in what he says that we can imagine. And, I just simply don't know the truth of his history, but we could certainly imagine that he is beyond spooked by the prospect of agreeing to demands by police when he doesn't disagree when they say that he's passed a fake bill, I guess is why they were called to the scene. But that doesn't mean, just because he did either nothing wrong to begin with or something trivial wrong, that doesn't mean that something bad won't happen to him. So, is he legitimately, worried and alarmed and saying things that are incoherent? Maybe. But he's also so incoherent and so unwilling to respond to what appear to be very moderate requests that the police are being pushed and pushed and pushed.
Well, I don't know. They want to put him in the car.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go in the car. He wants to go on the ground.
And why do they want to put him in the car for having passed a fake bill?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about the law. I mean, obviously passing a fake bill, potentially we're talking about a counterfeiter, right? Obviously a $20 bill is not a major matter, but counterfeiting is a federal crime. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. But the point is, I think the real point is this. The transcript is complex, right? There are lots of things in play here. What we all saw on video was very troubling. But what it actually means is unclear, right? What you need in order to figure out what it means is a court that is free to engage in navigating those issues, to have experts on the law, on normal police procedure, on procedure under special circumstances, on the drugs that appear to have been in his system and whether or not they were present at the moment that he was being arrested, or this was a trace toxicity, as Joe Rogan suggests it might be. You want to know those things, and you want to have a court free to navigate these things. But above and beyond the fact that the transcript does reflect an environment that has a lot of things going on and which a court would need to navigate, here's the thing that is most troubling to me. That link to the document was sent to me by a friend, right? We both thought it did not exist in the world. On trying to figure out if the document was authentic, it was on a New York Times server, right? And so the question is, well, is it authentic? Why is it on a New York Times server? It became quickly apparent that it had been published a couple days prior by the New York Times. They had written a story on it, and they had linked the document, and it was sitting there on their server, so it is legitimate. But here's the question. Why was it not a huge story? Why was, given all that is happening downstream of George Floyd's tragic death, why was the contents of the transcript not on everybody's mind? Because many of the things that have been said about the arrest are, I don't want to say testable in a scientific sense, but they can be compared to the transcript, and we can actually have answers about what took place. And there seemed to be very little interest in having that discussion for some reason. And it's very hard for me to imagine. I would have thought the emergence of that transcript would immediately have trended on Twitter. It would have been the focus of the news cycle for 24 hours, if not more. And there would have been all kinds of discussion. And instead, somehow, the social environment, I think, treated it as not important. And I worry that it treated it as not important because it was complex rather than a simple story of murder.
Yeah, it is complex. I've got a piece highlighted here in which the officer Officer Lane, I guess in this case, is trying to get Floyd to get out of the car, and we can't necessarily tell. It looks like Floyd doesn't want to do it, and he's not doing it, and the officer keeps saying, "Get out of the car." And the woman who he's with, Shavonda Renee Hill, finally says, "Stop resisting, Floyd." And this is early in the interaction, but one of the people whom Floyd is with is reading what is happening as Floyd resisting the officers. What appear, I'm reading into this, but it would appear from her comment here that she is reading what her friend, acquaintance, whatever, Floyd is doing as resistance that is not warranted by the situation. It's complex, like you said.
Yeah, it's complex, which doesn't mean it's not murder. But, again, we have a structure that deals with this. It's called a court. It makes findings of fact and findings of law. It does so on the basis of evidence. And what we now have is a situation in which the public perception that it knows what it saw on that video, that is sufficient to determine what took place, is a grave danger, It is a grave danger to our system, to the extent that what we end up doing is using our courts to validate public perception, basically getting them to rubber stamp the court of public opinion's judgment. That is, again, the uninvention of America. If this is clear, then allow it to be found so in a court rather than assuming that the court has only one choice because the answer is so simple.